Welcome to a new story written by Oracle 1. Letters from Paris. Episode 2. Ink on the Wind. The letters began to arrive faster. Not rushed, never that. Julien still wrote with the same careful rhythm, the same deliberate pacing that made each sentence feel considered, almost felt before it was written. But the space between replies had narrowed. Days instead of weeks, sometimes less. Elena noticed it before she admitted it. She found herself waking with a quiet expectation in her chest. Not hope, not exactly. Hope implied something fragile, something she could lose. This felt steadier, more dangerous. It was a rainy Thursday when she realized something had shifted. The shop was quiet, the usual mid-afternoon lull settling in like a held breath. Water traced slow lines down the window, blurring the city beyond into muted shades of gray and gold. Elena stood behind the counter, reading Julien's latest letter for the third time. "You asked what I see when I walk through the city," he had written. "Today, I tried to look at it the way you might. As if everything had a story waiting to be arranged, like your flowers. There is a woman who sits outside the bakery near my street every morning. She feeds the birds crumbs from her pocket and speaks to them as if they answer back. I used to think it strange. Now I think, perhaps she is less alone than most of us. You see? This is your fault. You've changed the way I notice things." Elena smiled faintly. "Or maybe you just needed someone to tell it to," she murmured. But even as she said it, she knew that wasn't entirely true. Something had changed. In him. In her. In the quiet space between them that now felt anything but empty. She folded the letter carefully, slipping it into the small wooden box she kept beneath the counter. There were 11 letters now. She hadn't meant to keep them all. At first, it had been practical, so she wouldn't lose track of what he'd said, what she'd replied. But somewhere along the way, it had become something else. Something closer to keeping. "You're smiling again." Elena looked up. Mara leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, one brow raised in amusement. Her dark curls were damp from the rain, her coat still dripping slightly onto the tiled floor. "I always smile," Elena said. "Not like that," Mara replied. Elena frowned. "Like what?" "Like you're somewhere else." The words lingered. Elena turned back to the counter, reaching for a bundle of eucalyptus she didn't actually need to rearrange. "I'm just thinking," she said lightly. Mara snorted. "Thinking doesn't make people smile like they've just been kissed." Elena nearly dropped the stems. "That's not," she started, then stopped. Mara's expression sharpened instantly. "Oh no," she said slowly. "That's exactly what that is." "It's nothing," Elena said quickly. "Nothing?" Mara pushed off the doorway, stepping closer. "You've been distracted for weeks. You check the mail like it owes you something. And now you're smiling at nothing in the middle of a rainstorm?" Elena hesitated. Just for a moment. It was enough. "Who is he?" Mara demanded. Elena closed her eyes briefly. Of course she would jump to that. "There is no he," she said. Mara folded her arms. "Try again." Elena sighed. "It's complicated." "Good," Mara said. "I hate simple." Elena huffed out a small laugh despite herself. Then, slowly, she told her, not everything, but enough. The letter. The reply. The way it had continued. When she finished, Mara was staring at her like she'd just confessed to something both absurd and inevitable. "You're writing letters," she said finally. "Yes. To a man in Paris." "Yes. A man you've never met." Elena nodded. "And you don't see the problem with this?" Elena hesitated. "I didn't say that." Mara exhaled sharply. "This is insane." "I know. And you're going to keep doing it anyway." Elena looked down at her hands. "Yes." Mara studied her for a long moment. Then, to Elena's surprise, she smiled. "Okay," she said. Elena blinked. "Okay?" "Yeah," Mara shrugged. "It's insane, but it's also kind of romantic." Elena laughed, tension easing just slightly. That's one word for it. What's his name? Mara asked. Elena paused. Julian. Mara nodded slowly. Of course it is. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. Rain tapped softly against the window, steady and unrelenting. The city had quieted, the usual noise softened into distant hums and occasional passing lights. She lay on her back, staring at the ceiling. Julian's words echoed in her mind. Would we still have found each other? She turned onto her side, reaching blindly for the small stack of letters on her bedside table. Her fingers found the latest one. She unfolded it again, even though she knew every word. It wasn't just what he wrote. It was how it felt. Like he was speaking directly to something she hadn't realized she'd been missing. Something quiet, something patient, something real. Elena swallowed. This is ridiculous, she whispered. She didn't even know what he looked like. Didn't know how he laughed. Didn't know how he moved through a room. How his voice sounded when it wasn't filtered through ink and distance. And yet, she knew the way he thought. The way he noticed small things. The way he chose his words carefully, as if each one mattered. Her chest tightened. Don't do this, she told herself. But it was already happening. The next letter she wrote was different. She felt it as soon as she started. Julian, you asked if we would have found each other any other way. I don't know. But I do know this. There's something about writing to you that feels easier than it should. Like the distance removes the need to pretend. And maybe that's dangerous. Because I find myself wondering things I shouldn't. Like what your voice sounds like. Or whether you laugh quietly or loudly. Or if you would recognize me in a crowded room. I don't know what that says about me. But I thought you should know. Elena. She stared at the page for a long time after finishing. Her heart beat faster than it should have. This was different. More honest. More exposed. She almost didn't send it. Almost. The reply came faster than ever before. 3 days. Elena recognized the envelope instantly. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Elena, you're right. It is dangerous. But I don't want to pretend it isn't happening. I think about you too. More than I should. More than makes sense. And I find myself doing something I haven't done in a long time, imagining what it would be like to sit across from you. To hear your voice instead of reading your words. To see if reality matches whatever this is we've built between us. So I'll ask you something reckless. Come to Paris. No expectations. No promises. Just reality. If nothing else, we'll know. Julian. Elena's breath caught. The world seemed to still around her. Come to Paris. The words echoed. Loud. Impossible. Terrifying. Exciting. She set the letter down slowly. No, she said immediately. Absolutely not. This was exactly the kind of thing people regretted. Flying across the ocean to meet someone she'd never seen, never spoken to outside of ink and paper. It was reckless. Impulsive. Unrealistic. She stood abruptly, pacing the small space. You don't even know him, she muttered. Her gaze fell on the box beneath the counter. On the letters. On the quiet truth she had been avoiding. Maybe she didn't know him in the traditional sense. But she knew something. Something that felt real. That evening, Mara didn't even let her finish explaining. You're going, she said immediately. Elena stared at her. I didn't say that. You don't have to. Mara. You're already halfway there, she insisted. You're just waiting for someone to push you the rest of the way. Elena crossed her arms. And that someone is you? Obviously. Elena shook her head. This is insane. Yes, Mara agreed. But it's also the kind of insane people write stories about. Elena hesitated. Stories. Letters. Paris. Julian. Her heart betrayed her again, beating just a little faster. What if it's not the same? She asked quietly. Mara's expression softened. Then you come home, she said simply. And at least you'll know. Elena looked down. That was the worst part. Not knowing. Not anymore. 2 weeks later, Elena stood in an airport. Her ticket clutched tightly in her hand. her heart somewhere between her chest and her throat. "This is happening," she whispered. Mara grinned beside her. "Told you." Elena let out a shaky breath. "What if he's not there?" Mara shrugged. "Then you go see Paris anyway." Elena huffed a small laugh. "Easy for you to say." "Hey," Mara said, nudging her gently. "You're doing something brave. Don't ruin it by overthinking." Elena nodded slowly. Then, before she could second-guess herself, she walked toward the gate. Paris greeted her with soft light and unfamiliar air. The city felt different from the moment she stepped out, quieter in some ways, louder in others. The rhythm of it didn't match anything she was used to. It felt alive. Her heart pounded as she made her way through the streets, letter folded in her pocket. Julian had named a place. A cafe. Simple. Public. Safe. Her footsteps slowed as she approached it. Small tables. Warm light. The faint murmur of conversation drifting through the open doorway. She stopped. Took a breath. "This is it," she whispered. Then she stepped inside. Her eyes scanned the room. Faces turned. Strangers. All of them. No one stood. No one approached. No one. Her breath caught. A man sat alone near the window. Dark hair. Still posture. A letter on the table in front of him. Her letter. Elena's heart stuttered. This was it. This was him. She stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said softly. The man looked up and smiled. But something was wrong. Not in a way she could name. Not yet. But she felt it instantly. A subtle shift. A quiet misalignment. "You must be Elena," he said. His voice was warm. Familiar in a way that should have felt right. But didn't. Not quite. Elena hesitated. Just for a second. Long enough for doubt to slip in. "Yes," she said slowly. "And you're Julian?" The man's smile didn't falter. "Of course," he said. But something in her chest tightened. Because the moment he said it, she knew. This wasn't the man from the letters. For more stories, like and subscribe.